I call to order the July 10, 2017 legislative session at Swarthmore Borough Council. Looking around, Mr. Carey cannot be with us tonight. I expect Mr. Murphy, at least I have not heard he would not be here tonight.
So about 15 minutes ago. So.
Okay. Before turning to this evening's agenda, I would like to recognize a special guest who has traveled from Harrisburg to be with us this evening. Chris Kapp, Executive Director of the Pennsylvania State Associations of Boroughs, has come to make a presentation. The Association of Boroughs provides valuable services and support to the more than 950 Pennsylvania boroughs of different sizes and circumstances that are scattered across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We appreciate the Association's efforts on Swarthmore Borough's behalf, and we thank Chris for joining us this evening. Chris.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you
very much. Well, Mr. President, Swarthmore is a beautiful community. Thank you so much for the invitation. I came in here to recognize a very special person. Jane Billings has been very involved in a number of policy matters inside and outside of Swarthmore Borough. And 25 years of service is just exceptional, and I had to come in here because she couldn't make our annual conference with her cheap. I was very, very disappointed about that. But I did talk to your president behind your back, Jane. My apologies, and I'm just glad to be here because my daughter might be applying to Swarthmore. She's a junior in high school right now, and she's looking at her options, but I figured I'd get a little preview myself and kill two birds with one stone and come out and see you. But I want to present you the Carol Samble Award. Now, Carol Samble passed away a few years. She was on our board of directors for many years. Very vocal advocate for PSAB and local governments. She was from Beaver County. And 25 years of service, our board of directors decided to name the award after her. And she was one of my dear friends. I've been with PSAB for 16 years. And I will tell you this, Carol Samble will be very proud to know that you're getting this award. In 25 years, again, I just wanted to say, Jane, I've met her in policy arenas in Harrisburg before. And you know, for her to be serving here for such a long period, I know she's had vast experience on the other side of the country, just a bit. She's been very involved in policy matters, and she's just an exceptional public servant. And sometimes the managers don't always get the full credit. And Mr. President, I really appreciate the opportunity to come out and recognize her. But Carol Samble Award presented to Jane Billings, Swarthmore Borough, by the Pennsylvania State Association of Boroughs, in recognition of 25 or more years of dedicated service. Signed by Chuck Mummer, who was our president from Elizabethtown Borough, and Chris Kapp, myself, executive director. But Jane, I was in the area. Very much wanted to come out and see you. Very much so.
If you could sort of go out in the middle and face television land, and smile at one another. And the mayor's going to take a photograph that's going to appear in the Daily Bugle.
Daily Bugle's right here. Excuse me, here. Sign.
Lots of pictures for the Daily Bugle. Chris,
I would just like to say, since nobody asked me to speak, I noticed. And we already heard that managers are underrepresented or something like that. Those of you who know me know I'm often disparaging of 25-year awards. I'm like, why do you get an award just for hanging around long enough and surviving? But 25 years is a long time. It's a lot of sewer blocks and police contracts and missed trash collection. But I don't think you could find somebody who feels luckier and happier to have the job that I have. This is not a retirement speech. If you thought it was, it's a little early. I have a few projects I'd like to finish up. But thanks very much. It's been a pleasure.
Chris, thanks. I proposed Jane for this award because she gets it in two capacities. She has been borough manager for 25 years and borough secretary for 25 years, and each entitles her to recognition for this 25-year award. She did not know at the time that I had proposed it for it that I was considering withdrawing it because at that very time she was moaning about other people getting 25 years. And the die was already cast and the plaque was already made and it was too late. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I would note that when I was in ninth grade in 1951 in Swarthmore Borough, we had to take a course in Pennsylvania history for half the year in civics and in Pennsylvania history. You were given a relief map and you had to be able to identify and locate every one of the 67 counties and its county seat on that map. Somehow that's requiring that it's passed. So, at this point, we turn to the agenda. And anybody who came for the presentation and have no interest in anything else we're going to do here tonight are free to go.
Thank you.
And I hope that the fact that you walked over here with Paul and the dog didn't give the game away.
We always walk over. And
that's good.
many
The dog doesn't
many
need
dogs,
to the meeting.
many dogs in many years.
Okay, very good. Public comment, anybody wishes to address council on any matter of borough interest, please come to the podium, state your name and your street address, and we'd be happy to hear you.
Okay, Robert Small, 305 Rutgers Avenue. And we'd like to thank the council and public safety for agreeing to proceed with traffic calming measures at the intersection of Rutgers and Yale. That's the Yale Avenue Expressway. And could you please let us know when the process will actually begin? Thanks.
And I was, Jane, there are three intersection improvements to be made, Rutgers and Yale, Harvard and Chester Road, and Harvard and Yale, and Jane perhaps can give us the status of those projects. The same company that is doing the sidewalk installations is also going to do those. But Jane, where does that stand?
I'm looking at the email I got today. Those projects are slightly delayed because PennDOT is approving the curb cuts installations that go along with them. They've all been submitted. 10 ramps, 31 total ramps have been submitted for approval by PennDOT. So the hope is that it will be within the next month that they'll be approved and they can start. As you said, the contract is bid, the contractor is here, they just have to wait for PennDOT approval. That's just, I'm going to say, at the same time, the two sidewalk projects that were not completed, the northern end of Chestnut Avenue and the western end of the Crescent Avenue sidewalk are also waiting for approval of curb cut design. They will go all the way to the street.
Okay. Anybody else?
My name is Jonathan Hodgson, 533 Riverview Road. I actually would like to request an update on the status of the berm at 541 Riverview Road. I believe we asked this question a month ago. Just before the meeting, I walked up with my wife to look at the thing and there seems to be no sign of any actual progress.
Yes, I am frustrated that we have not received a planting plan yet, which we have been promised. I did reach out to the owner's attorney today. He said the owner's out of the country, so he hasn't had a response from him. But he did say that it's his understanding that they would be doing some earth fill in anticipation of planting before the end of July. So there is scheduled earth fill, which would be the first step before they do planting. They have promised that they would submit a planting plan for a review, but we do not have it yet, and in my opinion, it is overdue.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else tonight?
Good evening. Susan Smythe, 207 Cornell Avenue. I wanted to make a couple comments with regard to regulating parking on parts of Cornell, Harvard, and Dartmouth. As I said, I live in the 200 block. I am well aware, because I'm responsible, that there's been a significant parking issue on the 200 block recently, largely due to construction at the college, which is due to finish at the end of August. We have made some significant strides in reducing that issue by being able, in the summer, to offer parking on campus for many of those workers But sort of in the course of that, trying to solve that problem, I've actually been sticking flyers on cars on a daily, sometimes twice daily basis. And I've discovered that actually many of the people that park at the beginning of the block are not construction workers. They are either workers at the post office or workers or commuters. So while I don't necessarily have a lot of sympathy for the commuters, I do worry that restricting that block to residents only is going to create an issue for the post office workers, which Jane reminds me they can park by getting a permit and parking on Myers. But if they don't do that, I guess in general, the solution feels like just chasing the problem down the road, either to the next block or to another adjoining block. The two adjoining blocks of Harvard Avenue have an odd 2-hour only thing going on, which creates a lot of confusion and a lot of work for the police force, especially at the moment while they're trying to dog people that shouldn't be parking there. And I guess, and I fully confess that I say this from the position of privilege of having a driveway, and I know not all of my neighbors do, but we are in a somewhat urban town setting where parking on the street is a typical thing. And I have lived there for almost 22 years now. And aside from this recent noticeable bubble, it's never really been an issue on that block. And so I just, and we also have people on the street with home health aides and babysitters and various sporadic visitors, and I don't really know how they would be affected by the need for a guest permit or a pass or whatever. And so I guess I just encourage you to sort of think hard about widening this zone of no parking, because it just seems then to create an issue that pushes it further out of the center of town. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Rick Miller, and I'm here representing the Swarthmore Presbyterian Church. We're located at 727 Harvard Avenue, and I'm here to speak to the proposed elimination of parking along Park Avenue in the 700 block. The church wants to essentially establish a position that we have no obligation to that change, and in point of fact, we find it as a benefit and an attribute to eliminating what is a burgeoning problem to the nursery day school, and particularly in the times when parents are coming to the facility, queuing up on Harvard Avenue to gain access into the parking lot to drop children off and then pick them up in the afternoon. This problem gets exacerbated when any traffic coming from the west on Harvard Avenue comes along. That with parking on that street, it essentially becomes a one lane street for travel. Passing anybody, you have to find an open parking spot to get by. In any case, there is a bus that comes in the afternoons that does come from the west, does park to discharge children to go into the nursery day school, and it just exacerbates that problem even further. So we see it as a potentially elimination of a safety issue and a good thing.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing no hands, public comment is ended for the evening. Next, we have had distributed to us our minutes for our meeting of June 12th. Is there a motion to approve those minutes as distributed?
So
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or about anything in the minutes? Seeing that, all those in favor of approving the minutes say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Anybody opposed? There's no opposition, they're approved. Environment Committee,
No report this month.
will you be meeting this month?
No.
Okay. Finance Committee, Mr. Kerry chaired that committee. Who is going to carry the ball on his behalf?
I mean,
The honoree?
say it again?
The honoree?
Yeah, well, you all can make the motions, I can't do that.
I understand.
But
You just
I
tee it
can
up
make,
and welcome the ball.
I'll tee up think it does 25 years. The revenue and expenditure sheet, you can see that the expenditures are tracking almost identical to last year. The revenues are not as high as last year. Last year, we had some pretty unanticipated balloon payments in the building permit field. We actually are going to be, the college is continuing to build and continuing to pay building permits, but last year, I think the single building permit for the new dorm was in last month. So that's the only difference. We're tracking right where we should be on the revenues and expenditures. And I don't think there was anything on the bill list of particular interest. I will say that we have started to make payments on the sidewalk project, and that contractor is Marina Brothers. And there's also 2 bills to the engineer for their inspection services and other services related to the project.
So the total of the bill list, open invoices, is $211,292.68. Is there a motion to approve payment of those invoices? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion about any item on the list? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving payment of those invoices, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposed? Payment is approved.
Transactions to ratify.
We are presented with transactions to ratify, which total $2,341.58, all of which appear to have to do with loan repayments. Is there a motion to ratify those payments? So moved. Second?
Second.
So let's step it up, folks. Any discussion about any of those? All those in favor of ratifying those transactions, please say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any opposition? The transact payment is ratified. I assume the Finance Committee, it being July, will not meet so far as you know. General Government Committee.
Okay, general government will meet at our regular time on July 17 at 7:30 p.m. in the evening here. There are a couple of things to report. One is that we would like to make a recommendation for appointment to the Human Relations Commission, which is a 3-member commission, and one of our long-serving members, George Huber's term expired in December. I spoke with George, and he's happy to be re-upped for another term. So we would like to recommend George for renomination. The other people currently on the commission are Courtney Knopp, whose term expires in 2018, and Sean Eyring, whose term expires at the end of 2017. So I can make that recommendation now. I have a couple other things to propose.
Okay. If that recommendation is a motion?
It's a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor of that, any discussion about that proposed appointment? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Is there any opposition? The appointment is approved with thanks.
Okay. And then one item that we were assigned to work on, which we will be discussing at our next meeting and at future meetings until we get the work done, is the police citizen information sheet that was discussed at a prior meeting. So I just want to note that we're working on that. Jane and I have worked on this form for approving town events that result in road closures. And the committee considered that. And we have some great language. And do you all want to say, Jane or Bob, do you all want to say about that?
I just reviewed it tonight, and I think it's a good product. I did have one suggested change.
Sure.
I think that to manage expectations, I think that the borough has a lot of discretion in turning down commercial applications, and less discretion when the application is for a First Amendment protected activity, like a political march, a rally, a religious gathering. So in item 6, where you talked about benefits, I would like to strike the providing products and services language.
Okay.
I don't think that that is, I don't want you to kind of inadvertently commit yourself to less discretion than you have.
Okay.
So that was, and I substituted there, instead of, I said promoting the arts and education instead of providing products and service and education.
Okay.
Okay. Is this a policy that requires, or should
Yeah.
have council approval?
I think so.
So should we do a resolution at sometime in the future?
Is there any rush on, I mean,
There's no rush.
I think that a cover resolution would be fine. I think you could vote on by motion tonight, but
We know it's seen it, I was.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
Some people have said it, but I'm not sure.
I was waiting, we were waiting for this review and to see how he recommended, how Bob recommended it.
Maybe it can be put on the agenda for adoption, circulation before the next meeting, and put on the agenda for the next meeting for adoption, or at least vote.
We have started already using the form for a couple of events.
And just so that you know, the committee did review it and will support it. And so that's that. Then the last thing is the time bank. And Jane, maybe we can just share a little bit. A lot of work's been going on about the time bank and aging in place. There was a meeting that Jane convened of 3 members of the senior citizens group who are, tasked with working on this, plus Jane and myself and the community center, representative from the community center, and Alex, the young man who was the student working for us this summer, has done a huge amount of work. I was really impressed with, actually, it sounds really easy on the surface. When you dig into it, there's actually a lot to it. It's like as if saying, well, let's have an app for doing all the work you have to do. The app might be easy, but doing the work is not that easy. You still have to do the work. So we dug into that. I don't know if you want to talk about that. I could offer some comments.
I think,
Is it yet mature enough to?
no.
We're still looking at it because even though you get this app that allows people to trade hours and all this for
I'm
stuff.
talking about an app in an iPad, in a smartphone.
Computer application.
Okay, right.
You still have to hire people to interview people to bring them in. You have to hire people to put on events. You have to hire people to do a lot of stuff to actually make it work. And you also might have to pay for insurance. You might have to put some real money up for insurance, which we discussed, and we could make a recommendation on that. So there's a lot more. There are a few more things we need to do. We're also looking at ways that are the ways to do the same thing, but without this particular proprietary computer program, but do the same thing. And are there ways to spend the money we would have to spend that would be efficient ways to spend it, consistent with the culture of our town? So we're still working on it. And
A little bit of a break, and while Linton from the Senior Citizens Association is on summer vacation, and in the meantime, Alex is busy working with SRA on their walking program for seniors. He said to me today, do you think 2.7 miles is too far? I said, probably. So, but it's really great. It's probably exactly what you would hope to see, a handicap accessible route for a mile and a half, looking at various sites in town, one different route each week. And should be rolled out either before the fall, when McCullough is thinking, or in the soon after the fall workshop.
And he's also going to be working with the
And he's
library.
working with the library and coming up with some sort of
The
center for
the time
seniors.
bank has its genesis in the thought that there are seniors living in their homes who have needs associated with it being in those homes, who could use assistance from others who would be prepared to volunteer the time to bring a wrench or do whatever, in return for which they get credits on the time bank where somebody else would come and do something for them that they need
Yeah.
that done.
That's the concept.
Okay.
Correct.
All right.
Okay, that's all I have to report.
Okay, thank you very much. Planning and zoning?
Thank you.
The Planning and Zoning Commission, the Planning Commission has been meeting over the past several months to talk about the Aging in Place report as it relates to planning and zoning. And what we've been trying to do with the Planning Commission is sort of just throw anything out there that could possibly be achieved as it relates to the Aging in Place report. Ross has attended those meetings as well, so we realize that there is a bit of there's a dovetail with sort of the condition of the downtown and the Aging in Place report. So what we are going to do, what the Planning Commission is going to do at its next meeting, which is on July 19th, they have invited Beth Murray, who lives here in Swarthmore, and she is going to come in and do a visioning session with the Planning Commission. So I would invite the public, this is your chance to come to a Planning Commission meeting and listen to and contribute to any ideas you might have about aging in place in the borough. And there are going to be hopefully representatives from Town Center at the meeting, as well as people who worked on the Aging in Place report. And we are hoping to actually achieve something with this, but at least cut down on what seems to be what I will call doing things in silos here in the borough, where you're talking about one thing and then you realize that somebody else, like maybe the mayor, is already working on this with another group. So we're trying to tie it all together in the hope that once we maybe can get a written report from the Planning Commission, then we'll have something else to bring back here to Borough Council that we can recommend about the Aging in Place report. So unless anybody has any questions, does anybody have any questions about that
Is
particular?
the visioning related to land use issues?
The visioning is
Which
related.
is, of course, the mission of the planning commission.
It is related to land use issues, but I think that it's hard to talk about land use issues in places where seniors could possibly live without taking into account a little bit the zoning of the downtown and maybe some possibilities if people who own property downtown, commercial property, were maybe interested in doing something along the lines of, housing for people downtown. So it just seemed like the kind of thing that might go better if we had all of the players in one room at one time.
Good.
So keeping with the Planning Commission, we've had a couple of resignations from the Planning Commission, hopefully not related to what I just reported on. But John Penders, who has served as the chair of the Planning Commission, is actually, he has resigned because he is moving from the borough, so his resignation will be effective August 1st. In addition, Vukan Vucek, who has served on the Planning Commission also for a while, has resigned, and I think I told you a few months ago that George Wilson had resigned from the Planning Commission. So we have a few vacancies that we would like to fill. So tonight I would like to make, I think, two separate motions to appoint two individuals to the Planning Commission to take, but do you want to do it in a motion, one person at a time? Or?
Yes, and we don't understand this is a motion made on behalf of your committee.
That is correct. The committee
So one at a
has-
time.
Okay. So the first motion is to appoint Don Jones, who is an architect at Ewing Cole, to fill the remainder of Vukan Vucek's term, which would be ending December of 2017.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that appointment? I am sent by Mary the bios of these folks. I don't know how generally they've been sent to other members of council, but that having been said, does anybody have any discussion about this particular appointment as moved?
I know Don a bit. I think he did a great job.
Any other? All those in favor of this appointment say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any no vote? It's unanimously appointed with thanks.
And then the second motion is to appoint Swarthmore resident Nancy Templeton to complete George Wilson's unfinished term on Planning Commission, which would end at the end of 2018. Nancy is a newer resident to the borough. She is a planner, and she works at a firm named Thomas Black and Alan Paoli. And again, I have passed her resume on to David and to the Planning and Zoning Committee. If other people on council would like to see these resumes, I'm certainly happy to send them. But I think she has a lot of experience with She worked on rewriting the zoning code for the city of Philadelphia. She has done this visioning for other cities. She has done that regarding the Upper Darby revitalization plan. So I really think her skills really fit what we're looking for. So that is my motion.
Second. I sent, when Mary sent me a copy of the bio for this nominee or candidate, I replied, it's just astonishing. The quality experience of people who live around us in this town.
I say overqualified for that description.
I wasn't going to say it, never overqualified, but it's just astonishing that people who have these skills and are still, unlike me, have a day job, are prepared to sign on to these, to support the borough on these kinds of activities. All those in favor of appointing the person indicated, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Any no vote? She is appointed with thanks.
And if I could make a comment, Mary and I were sharing some material today with Nancy, and I directed her to the website under the Planning and Zoning tab, which has a lot of reports on it, the comprehensive plan, the town center task force, and she said, I think I've actually looked at a few of those already, and I was thrilled. That's great. Great news.
She's ready to hit the ground running. So, all right, and then the last thing is the Planning and Zoning Committee will be meeting this month on July 27th, and we are going to be discussing Airbnbs.
Okay, and in this room?
In this room at 7:30 p.m., and as always, the public is welcome to attend.
Thank you. Is that it?
That's it. Thank you.
Executive, David?
Thank you, David. So, ordinance 1080, proposed ordinance 1080, has been advertised for the past 30 days and is now up for consideration by council. You've all seen it before. We've discussed it. This would further regulate parking on parts of Cornell, Harvard, and Bedford Avenues. We heard some comments tonight. I would say one comment was sort of unambiguously pro what we would be doing on Harvard Avenue. The other comment I would say is probably neither pro nor con, but very thoughtful and welcome. It is a fact that people do have to park somewhere, and that includes people who work in the borough and are here for other reasons other than the fact that they live here. Nevertheless, the Public Safety Committee, of course, as you already know, had considered this and presented, I would say, a unanimous recommendation that the council enact this ordinance. As I say, the advertising period is over and it's up for discussion and possible enactment. So I move that council enact ordinance 1080.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
I have a comment.
Yeah, please.
When this came up the last time, I think I gave a long talk about how I interviewed a guy who was out on Cornell and he explained all this. And I think at that last meeting I said, on the Cornell part, I could wait until these projects are over and see if the street changes at all or not, and then address it because, and I think I said that because I thought we might just end up pushing it might not be necessary. I did comment about the post office people. I think my comment was I was wondering if they had been pushed out of the building that used to be Mrs. Artis's building, but everybody seemed to think that no, they weren't previously parking behind there. But I do see the post office people parking there. So, I mean, my inclination would be, I think all three are good, but I probably would hold off on Cornell until after the August projects are finished and take another look at it then. So what I would do is, and I'm not trying to disrupt this, but I would move to, and I'll need a second on this, but I would move to amend it to take off the Cornell part until after the college projects are done, proceed with the other two, and then come back to Cornell after the projects are done and revisit that. I don't know whether anybody
Is there a second to that motion? That motion fails for want of a second. Any other discussion about the motion, the ordinance as proposed?
I'd like to just make a point regarding Harvard Avenue. It's a frequent cut through for those traveling south on Chester Road to get to Yale Avenue. And I find that the cars parked there are of immense value in slowing that traffic down. And it's proven traffic calming that when you put cars on the road, you have to proceed with caution. So with all due respect to the Presbyterian Church's opinion, I bike and run and walk on that road. And if you lose all those cars, it will be more of a speedway than it currently is. It's kind of a blind turn when you come around that turn. And I think those cars there provide not just parking on for the Postal Service and whoever wants to park on the street parking, but I think they're a secondary value there as well.
But the postal workers are Cornell.
I'm just talking about the whole, sorry, the whole ordinance.
Okay, sorry. Right. Any other discussion about any aspect of this? Okay, all those in favor of the proposed ordinance 1080 in its present form, say aye.
Aye.
Chair votes aye. That is 1, 2, 3, 4.
And I'm voting now.
Okay, so.
I'm a no.
Okay, you're a no.
You pass.
So that's 4 to 2.
4 to 2.
4 to 2, okay, so the ordinance is adopted. Of course, over time, hopefully we'll monitor the effects of the ordinance as it's implemented. And the fact that residents may get passes, say such on Cornell or property owners, for regular visitors, which I assume are free.
Correct. They're the same blue stickers, so actually there's quite a few residents who may end up parking on these streets.
But the residents are entitled to a permit to park there free.
Correct.
But if they have, say, such as has been suggested by Susan, if they have a regular worker who comes there for healthcare purposes, then there's a way to obtain a
Correct.
guest pass for that person
That is
to
correct.
access. Okay, thank you. Okay, David?
Right. The other item on the agenda, as far as public safety is concerned, is the report of the committee's last month's meeting. Most of that meeting was taken up with a consideration of the proposed changes to Swarthmore Borough civil service regulations, as in particular as they affect the hiring of police officers. I think you'll recall from our last meeting that some of this is non-controversial. The requirement relating to quorum, for example, but some of it is at least potentially more controversial. There are two parts to that. I'll deal with the first one, or with the second one first. As you'll recall, there was a motion at our last meeting to amend the regulations to, which would effectively prohibit police officers from displaying any visible tattoos. That motion was tabled. There was a second motion having to do with the basic requirements for hiring police officers. And just to boil it down, because I think you'll all remember, the basic concept was that in lieu of the current requirement of 60 college credits, that would still be in place, but in lieu of that, a candidate could also be considered if he or she had 3 years of continuous service with a federal, state, or municipal police department or equivalent organization. And the committee spent a lot of time, the Public Safety Committee spent a lot of time talking about that particular change. The general sense was that that made some sense in the current environment, especially when you consider that a large number of those 60 college credits would be supplied by police academy work in any case. So we're not actually talking about 60 college credits on top of the police academy, but rather as a total number. We didn't come to a final conclusion, however. And so I think that this is something that that maybe council as a whole will want to discuss, other people may want to weigh in on, and something that the Public Safety Committee may need to consider further. But for now, anyway, I'd kind of like to open, if I may, I'd like to open the discussion up to council.
Is it on your agenda for next, would you just, if we didn't come to consensus here, you could take it up again next month?
If we don't come to a consensus here, then we will meet again, yes.
Not that came down the road, just,
But we
I
will.
didn't know how you left it.
To answer your question, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we would meet again to discuss that particular issue.
I'm the person who asked that the motion be tabled.
Right.
Which is its present status.
Yes. And so I'll just comment that I did attend the meeting, and I very much appreciated the chief's comments at that meeting, and also Officer Stufflet, who spoke at the meeting, probably for about 45 minutes. And the only thing I'd like to say, and I think, I circulated some articles, it seemed to me that nobody's contesting the fact that it's useful to have the education. It's a practical question about whether it will reduce the number of candidates available. I did ask the questions of the chief and the officer about the last two candidates that we hired, very good officers. I think that the comment was that there were maybe 15 candidates for the last hire and maybe 7 to 8 candidates for the prior hire. And I'll just say that the impression it made on me was that we're not like Philadelphia, we're not having to hire huge numbers of officers, and they changed it because they need numbers. We just need 1 or 2. So I also listened carefully to what the chief said about how, he suggested this educational requirement, and it's a good thing. It's more of a practical question. So that's kind of where I stand on it. I'm not making any motion. I just wanted to comment on my takeaway from the committee meeting.
Well, I would just say it really is a practical issue, and of course, it's an empirical question, right? And we don't know the answer to it yet, because until the change would be instituted, we don't know what effect, if any, it would have on the size of the pool. In fact, the only way you would really know that, I guess, would have to kind of do it both ways. With the 60 credit requirement, and with the 60 credit or the 3 years requirement. And so it's all kind of speculative at this point. I know, thank you, Ross, for circulating those articles, and Sergeant Stufflet and Chief Gregg had a lot to say about it based on their experience with police departments and the experience of other departments in the area. But it is somewhat anecdotal. We really don't have an answer to those questions.
I have a question.
Yes?
Is there any kind of incentive for them to get the 60 credits could there be once they're hired? Like a raise, or is that anything that's built into it?
Under the present contract, they can do it and we'll pay for it. And it's one of the, as I indicated at the past meeting, we're about to begin, we're about to begin negotiating a new contract. In the present contract, entitled members of the department to, subject to an individual amount and an aggregate department amount for budget to pursue their education. And I personally would not vote in favor of a contract that has us paying for something that a new hire has because we have waived the requirement before they get to us in the first place. to have the equivalent of 60 credits. But they would be entitled to that on our dime to get not just those credits, but continue to pursue education, which I don't begrudge at all, subject to certain individual limits and subject to an aggregate limit per budget year. But I myself would not vote for a new contract in which we assume an obligation which we have waived when hiring an officer in the first place. But the present procedural posture of this is that either it remains tabled until somebody moves to bring it on for action at this meeting or at any future meeting. And I think we have to separate them. I don't know if there's a groundswell of opinion about tattoos, but I think that in fact this Civil Service Commission regulation has no effect to present members of the department.
That's correct.
And so if a present member of the department wished to get a visible tattoo, that this would have no effect on that. Am I correct about that?
You are, because.
The provision applies to hiring.
Right, it
new officers.
it could affect somebody applying for a promotion.
Right.
But it would not have any
Okay.
immediate impact.
I mean, the tattoo issue, look, that's that's partly a empirical question as well, because the fact of the matter is there are quite a few people under the age of 30 nowadays who have tattoos, and sometimes they're quite visible, and whether that's something that can be reasonably regulated without infringing on First Amendment rights and all that sort of thing that's not an empirical question, that's a legal question,
Right.
but it's worthy of some discussion. And then there's the issue of, well, if an officer or a candidate had a visible tattoo, what if they could, for example, on a forearm or something like that, could it be concealed by means of a sleeve or a long sleeve shirt or whatever? Would that be sufficient? So I agree that it's not as weighty of an issue as the educational requirement, but quite frankly, the Public Safety Committee had not come to a final conclusion on that either.
Okay.
May I ask another question?
You certainly may.
On the first prong of it about the quorum requirement, what constitutes a quorum?
Yeah.
Should we untable?
No, that's passed.
That did pass.
That was
I'm
not
sorry,
tabled.
I should know that. Okay, because I was concerned about if the Civil Service Commission had to meet again.
No,
got
that's
done?
been done.
All right, thank you for
Do something.
reminding me. Thank you.
We act only on motions, so somebody's going to have to make a motion to do something, or this matter will remain tabled till the next meeting. If in the interim, the Public Safety Committee wishes to deliberate on it further, it may do so, but that's the present state of affairs.
And just to continue that thought, if there's no motion, or if we don't vote on it, it's status quo, so the education requirements stays in place.
Right.
And we have no law on that, so that's just.
And the motion remains tabled, but can be untabled by anyone at a future meeting of this body.
Does that expire at any time?
Not so long as I'm a member of council. After that, I don't think.
Fair enough. Thank you for the clarification.
Well, I'm just going to move on then, because nobody else.
That being the case, then the Public Safety Committee will meet again this month, and it'll be the usual time, the third Tuesday of the month at 7:30 p.m. in this room.
Thank you. Anything else, Dave?
That's all I have, thanks.
Thank you very much. Public Works, Parks, and Recreation.
Mr. Gordon, thank you. We did not meet in June, so I don't have any committee report. I did speak to Cuddy last week, and Jane, you could correct me if I'm misinformed, but I believe meeting starts next month.
Yeah, I didn't make it.
August,
I had
September.
another meeting. I
What starts next month?
Our paving, our approved paving that we
think it could be September.
I think it's August, maybe late August or parts of September. They're starting in Springfield. There's some work that Springfield's doing around their schools that they want to try to get done before the school year starts. So they're starting in Springfield, and then they'll be here. But so
We're always last.
We are.
And it had nothing to do with the contractor. When Glasgow had it, we were last.
Always last.
But that's, when you're a small borough,
They get to
you're
you
at the
in
end
now.
of the line. That's okay.
I'm going to keep the meeting on the calendar only for the fact that we haven't met in 2 months. So it's 27th at 8:30 a.m. right here. And I won't steal any of the mayor's thunder, but my favorite day in the borough, the 4th of July, gets as much park usage as any day of the year. So at Emoji Park, firefighters were kind enough to once again roll the hoses out, and which is awesome fun. And there were probably 20 pairs of horseshoe players at Little Crump Creek, admiring the sidewalk and the storybook walk and all that. So
They changed the story, by the way.
They changed the story.
It's a new story.
To a Swarthmore author, I believe.
So,
Oh.
Skippy John Jones.
Oh, is it?
if you read the prior story, you should hasten to Little Crump Creek Park and read the new story. It's riveting. We walk it by with the dog all the time.
And that is all the news that I have.
On the subject of public works, which, Jane, could you describe briefly the problem that occurred with the sewer line running under Chester Road serving the inn?
Yeah, the inn is hooked up to a line that goes under Chester Road towards the PNC Bank. And for whatever reason, probably having to do with heavy truck traffic and construction during the roundabout and in, that line had, I wouldn't call it a collapse, but it ceased functioning. So the college is in the process of reopening that line with pipe bursting technology, which means that they'll run an auger under the street, won't have to open the street, and pull a new pipe through that they'll connect to. The line that went under Chester Road formerly only took waste from the post office, which was a really small amount. So the line under Chester Road, in hindsight, probably should have been repaired when they were doing the work, but that happened sometime. So many thanks to the college for, of course, it was 4th of July weekend, as these things are, and it's been quite a bit of work for them to follow up on. But they've been great, really good about keeping the borough informed and taking over responsibility for the project.
To think of it like someone drilling a horizontal well, but I find it amazing. There was articles in the paper over the last week about drilling for the gas pipeline that was supposedly fouling some wells, and that gas line is being drilled horizontally 190 feet under the surface. So I find the technology
Technology's quite
fascinating.
amazing, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
That's it.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, David. The 4th was a particularly beautiful day. It was my favorite day in Swarthmore as well, David. I wanted to give a shout out to Andy Shelter, who for the 3rd year now has taken town portrait. This year he was up in the bucket truck and took a portrait down. People mostly standing in the amphitheater in around kind of Central Park. It's a wonderful thing. The picture gets better every year. I hope that next year we'll get even more people who will crowd in to make it an even nice thing. I think, is it up on the borough website?
Yeah.
It's up on the borough website now for anybody who wants to take a look at it. But it was a great day. This past Thursday, I attended the groundbreaking ceremony at the Headstrong House over at Harvard and Chester Road. It was a pretty wonderful, life-affirming event. We were helped out by a 5-year-old cancer patient who had his own shovel, and it was pretty delightful. All in all, I think it's a pretty, the house seems like a perfect use for it from my architectural point of view and from what I understand. And they're starting to work on it. I noticed people there today when I drove by, so I think it's all the permits have been pulled, right? And it's going for it. So I wish them all the best and Godspeed to getting it up and running. On Sunday, I took a walk with my wife in Crumb Creek, which on her birthday, which we were want to do. And it was particularly beautiful. It was really nice. I like the way that the restoration is kind of really coming along after all the work that was done with the trestle and everything else. But I would point out that luckily I had a couple of my bags with me that I carry most places, and I used them to collect 42 beer cans that were in and around Alligator Rock on Sunday morning. I think the timing of this makes it pretty obvious that these are not college kids who are out in the woods, because there aren't many college kids here now, but local kids.
Well, there's college kids that got a problem. There's so few of them.
It was cheap beer too, so it's like maybe we could get word out to the parents of some of our young adults in town, and maybe they could put pressure on their kids to, if they're going to take beer cans in, they should take them out with them, and then when they go at the very least. Because it really is a beautiful spot. Claudia and I both remarking at how what a wonderful amenity it is for us here in the borough to have the crumb as a relief valve. And the last thing I'll point out is that the Thursday Night Live music series is underway. There's 2 events happening. There's a new one coming up this Thursday, both with local bands. And it's a wonderful place to bring a picnic supper and hang out and listen to music. And it's been great so far, and I anticipate it'll be wonderful right through September. That's every other Thursday.
Okay.
And that's it.
Thank you. Honoree Borough Manager. I don't know if you all know that her first job was with the Streets Department of the City of Los Angeles. So she's come a long way.
I actually don't have a manager's report. Thank you. I did want to point out that you're seeing on the second page a new number 4, upcoming town center events. As part of our procedure, which you're going to get now that the solicitors had a chance to look at it, you will be notified once an event has been approved either by me or by the General Government Committee if it's a little bit more confusing. You'll also see that when there's an event like this, the police have seen it, the fire department has seen it, the fire marshal has seen it, and the town center coordinator has seen it, and all given their approval. These people are required to contact the police department. I believe he's done that, so we know exactly when they need the streets closed. And a really big part, people often want to know whether the merchants in town are notified. And not everybody works with the town center coordinator to make that happen. So town center merchants and others won't have a chance to say necessarily yes or no, but by this contact we'll find out what's working and what's not working. And this is actually a market that's going to go along with the concert on July 27th. Just one other thing on the meetings attended, the June 19th with our engineers, the MS4 pollution reduction plan. You may be reading about these in the paper. These are these fairly extensive plans that all municipalities have to prepare, showing how you're going to reduce the pollutants in your local streams, and for us that's mostly sediment. And so our engineers are working on that. It's due in September. We've met, we've come up with various projects that will tell the DEP that we hope to get done in the next, I think it's 5 to 10 years. But it's 5 years, our initial 5-year project. But this is, you're going to start reading more and more about this because I don't think there's a municipality in Delaware County that doesn't have to do one. Some have to do much more extensive projects actually called TMDLs, total maximum contributed or more, but under the radar. But it is fairly expensive. The engineer's been doing a lot of work. It's a fairly large budget item for this year. So probably at a future meeting, I'm guessing in August, the engineer will come and let you know what's going on. One of the requirements is that you let the public and your governing body know what's going on. That's all I have.
Well,
Thank you, I don't have anything.
the final item tonight, on what has been quite an upbeat night, deservedly so for Jane. And I think I note, and we all note the passing of Jack Huntz, who was the music director of our school district for many, many years. I was on the school board when Jack was hired. I can remember vividly my first encounter with him. I'll take a moment and share it with you. Because we were putting together two high schools, each with new identity, each with new name, each with new colors, became necessary. At the time, Swarthmore High School had no band at all. But the Nether Providence Bulldogs, I hasten to say, blue and gold, my wife's colors, did have a band. So it was necessary to buy new uniforms. And there was a meeting of the school board at the middle school. It was not a public meeting. And Mr. Hans, the young kid, 22, 23, came in and he gave us examples of the proposed uniforms, which looked to me might have served the Prussian army in the 1870s well. So he went over that, and then I said to him, Jack, is the band front going to carry rifles? And Jack didn't know where that question came from, but he knew it wasn't a good question. And so he said, no. And it could not real, the mock. He said no. I said, okay. And I served sitting on the other side of the room, this is a square setup, was Nancy Graham, a wonderful woman with whom I served on the school board for 12 years. We've gone on to other business, and at a certain point, Jack is still there. Or maybe Jack had gone by that point, but anyway, Nancy, who I was the closet Democrat on the board at that time, looked across at me and said, David, the rifles, is that some sort of Quaker thing? And I said, yes, Nancy, it is some sort of Quaker thing. But the tale whereby then Superintendent George Slick stole him from Conestoga High School, so offering him a job in a parking lot so he wouldn't go to work for different Easttown School District is a wonderful story. So Jack was the music man. He was, I understand, he was quite demanding for those who participated in his activities, but he is, will be a very, very hard act for anybody to follow, and he served our district well for many years, and council's concerns and love go out to his wife and his children. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So,
All that, we're adjourned.